And then that beauty of the moment, in the moment. It's part of living in everyday wonder. It's what we've been talking about this month, and we've been noticing as we take the time to just be, to see the magnificence and beauty that's in every place, every moment, every person that we meet. Last week, Reverend Barb Wally was kind enough to speak while I was out recovering from my surgery on my wrist, and she spoke about opening our hearts to everyday wonder. As we open to wonder, we open our hearts, and we move from our head to our heart. Right? We sense that oneness with all that is, and including the people around us, and we discover that spiritual magnificence as expressions of God. Right? We discover the love that binds us together, the love that is our source, that has created us and loves and heals us every moment, as long as we are open to accept it. So today, I'll be talking about embracing the now. Now, Michael shared a passage from Eckhart Tolle's 1997 book, The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment. And I don't know if any of you read it when it first came out. I read it that first year. A lot of people did in the Centers for Spiritual Living, Unity, all throughout the New Thought movement. And that book was transformational for many, many people. It had also attracted the interest of people across many faiths and in spiritual psychology. It encouraged the practice of mindfulness, which is now so prevalent even in businesses. So this morning, we're going to talk about how living everyday wonder is a pathway to focusing our attention on the now. Angelica, in this moment, the song that she said she wrote many years ago, but here's a few of the lines. There is nothing to be, nowhere to go. There is nothing to fear, because there is only this moment. Today is all there is, this moment. Life is what it is in this moment. It sounds so idyllic. When if you've had these moments when you're really in the present and you've let go of the past and the future, and it really is idyllic. But then there's a part of me, probably within you too, that says, won't our lives just fall apart? If we don't pay attention to our life situation, as Mike referenced in the reading today from Eckhart Tolle, what does it really mean to embrace the now? Is that really possible? Now, one of the challenges to understanding this and why it is really possible is this concept. It's because of our mistaken identity. We think that we are our inner storyteller, right? Our minds are just wonderful things. They're just planning everything and remembering these things, maybe forgetting now and then, but it's interacting with people. We've learned so much. You go through all the 12 years of school and maybe off to college or to trade school or just working or being a mom or whatever you're doing. But based on all of these past experiences, our minds try to solve all of our problems and fix everything that seems to be going wrong in our lives. And as soon as we fix one problem, you know what? A new one arises to take its place and capture our attention again and again. We have a storyteller within our mind that thinks it is who we are. It judges our experiences as creating good or bad consequences, or maybe creating happiness or sadness, joy or fear, anger, shame, or despair, right? We want to control, but we only want the ones that are good and none of the ones that are bad. How am I ever going to get out of this seemingly endless situation of the ongoing pandemic, right? And that's a great problem to solve. Or how can I ever transform my relationship to be full of joy rather than rejection or self-denial? Or if it's not our relationship, what about one of my kids that's in one of those issues, right? How can I ever get out of debt? There it comes around. How can I never be enough? All of these problems. Our inner storyteller is always ready there to look towards the past, trying to create a desired experience from the past or validate our identity, or maybe it's looking towards the future, We're trying to create a desired perfection that we want to experience. But that's in our minds what that perfection might be. Or maybe it just wants to let us find fulfillment, to have meaning in our lives. But it's forward based. It's hoping rather than focusing on now. So this is where our struggles begin. When we want our life to be different than it is, right? It's when we try to deny what it is, we resist it, or try to manipulate what it is. We may blame others or try to control them, or along with everything else, to fix our problems. And this just deepens our struggles. It's like when you're tied in, and as long as you keep pulling away, it's just going to make the knot tighter and tighter. You have to release it in order for that knot to come undone. We try to control our lives and everyone in it. We focus on fixing our problems, and we discover that each problem is replaced by the next one. This is not our true identity and purpose. Instead, this is how we avoid and resist what is. We resist being aware of what life actually is and how it's unfolding and how it is not. So there's an inherent conflict with this approach that we can only really live our lives in the now. Ernest Holmes, in his Lessons for Spiritual Mind Healing, he said, all ideas are formed in the present, since there is no past nor future to reality, right? So we have an image of what the past was. We remember it, but it's not a perfect memory. And we have an image, a forecast of what's going to come in the future, but it's only a forecast. The only reality we have is right now. Now, there's infinite ways that life can unfold from this moment. We no matter how brilliant or practiced our mind is, no matter how skillfully that inner storyteller weaves together all our past experiences and looks through all the options and picks the best one to interpret our best situation, our storyteller cannot know everything there is to know about the infinite possibilities or control the outcome. And what the storyteller really is not good at is coming up with new solutions that don't repeat history over and over again. Right? So we avoid living in the now in many ways to control the situation. We have addictions that are one way that we kind of also avoid living in the present. We can numb ourselves with alcohol or drugs. We can seek pleasure or thrills, but these only last for a short time. So we have to do it again and again. It's an addiction. We're addicted to relationships, perhaps, and all of the drama that can come along with searching for someone else that can make us happy, rather than looking within to find our own inner peace and happiness that we can then share. Angelica talked about how we have to love ourselves first before we can really love someone else and receive love. If we're not worthy, we won't receive love, even when it's given to us. Another way of avoiding it is we get really busy. So busy that we get lost in the details of avoiding what we think we don't want and acquiring what we want to have and doing what we want to do. And this sharp focus blinds us to what is. We try to control every aspect of our lives, including everyone else in our lives. Mary O'Malley, who wrote the book, this great book called What's in the Way is the Way, and I'll be using quite a bit from her today, as well as Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. But anyway, Mary O'Malley says that we can see the impossibility of control as a successful strategy if we just try to imagine someone looking up at those beautiful clouds in the sky and trying to control the clouds as they move by. Right? I mean, we know controlling everything in our lives is about equally preposterous. Right? It's just not going to happen. And so our emotions are another way, a very challenging way that keeps us locked into what our storyteller tells us. And so we can be afraid that if we try to feel what we feel, we're going to get caught up in the emotion, right? if we react with anger, we blind our thinking and our connection with spirit. So we don't want to do that, and we'll try and numb ourselves, hold those emotions down. We don't want to get lost in our feelings, because then we're going to be acting out blindly. We won't have control. We can also go in the opposite direction and get frozen in our grief or our sadness, because we're not willing to be with it. We just freeze. Instead of fighting, we're freezing. And so all of this, when we do shut down the emotions as a retreat, we shut off who we are, and we shut off the flow of life. Right? Now, it doesn't work, because if you don't look at them, they don't go away. They're just there waiting to be addressed. When I was in my teens and 20s, all of these experiences that I had, I didn't have the ability to look at them. And so I had this image in my mind of taking these memories that were too difficult to deal with, and I would wrap them up in a box with a pretty blue velvet bow and put them in my closet in my mind. And as I went through practitioner training and a lot of the spiritual work that I've done, one by one, I pulled those boxes out of the closet, opened them up, and dealt with all of that. And my journals became much more pleasant to reread after all of that, instead of being so dark. So they just wait for us. You can just have an ongoing sense of unease that you can suddenly come roaring out of that closet at any time too, when you haven't dealt with something. You think you've got it all tamped down, but it's still there, just waiting for the right moment, another trigger. As a society in the 1970s and the 80s, there was a feeling that you had to really counter these feelings and emotions and just express them out. There was primal scream therapy. I don't know if any of you know that. And when you do that, you have to scream out your anger and take a bat and beat on a pillow or something like that, right? And it was supposed to help get it all out. Well, I tried that one time and with a therapist, and I just ended the session early, because for me, all it was is no, it's for me, I was already facing my anger and fear that I was in. My first husband was dying, and so that wasn't helpful for me to do that. It was like going backwards rather than forward, and I wasn't really present with it. And there was also something called encounter groups in the 70s. They were very popular, and so people would get together and they would talk about all of their deep, dark secrets and their anger and their emotions, and it was a way of getting it out and expressing it. And there was a good part of that, but there was also a part of it where if you didn't have anything that was stressing you out, well, you had to come up with something. So people started inventing problems just to have something to be part of the group. And so a lot of people became worse rather than dealing with it, because you were dealing with it again in an emotional, reactive way, rather than facing it and letting spirit come and fuse it with that divine wisdom of being in the present. When we have another thing that happens is things happen to us when we're in a child, and when we're a child, when we're 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, by the time you're 6, you've really formed who you are and how you're going to be responding to the world. But things that happened back then, we have the intellect of a child and the experience of a child trying to deal with it. We don't understand that we're not the center of the universe, and we didn't cause all of our parents' problems. There are all these things that happen, and so that we get imprinted with that. And so inner child work is very important as we're an adult. And again, bring it into the present moment, to the present wisdom, and hopefully to allow that divine wisdom to be infused with the truth. So, thinking back to this morning's reading, how do we distinguish between our life which is the eternal now, and our life situation, which is ephemeral and always changing and evolving. Right? This is the work, and um, this is part of the shift that we do when we are present in the now. So one of the tools that we have to bring ourselves into the now and to make it a safe and fertile place to deal with these issues is to be curious. And when we are living in everyday wonder, we are living in amazement of what things are. We're being curious about, rather than trying to analyze things and and go back to all of the 50 times before that we've been through this problem, and we've got this tried and true solution. It's going to have the same tried and true, not quite good answer, but instead, when we're curious about it and ask ourselves, what is going on here? And look at it underneath. Look at it from different perspectives. Look at it from the perspectives of other people. And really take the time to look at what's going on, right? And you'll find things that you would have never seen otherwise. It's like taking off your sunglasses and when you're inside and being able to look. Or for me, I know, since I'm not wearing my contacts, because my can't get them in yet. But I need these glasses to see anything, and so it's very important to have them. But our wonder, then, it also helps us make that journey from the head to the heart. And in our heart, we connect with the whole of life, with our oneness with spirit, and our interconnectedness with all of life, right? And so when we choose to be curious about embracing the now, we awaken our consciousness to what is, rather than the limited perspective that our storyteller chooses to see and really can only see. Curiosity is the art of bringing your attention and your immediate experience together. This quote is from Mary O'Malley in her What's in the Way is the Way book. You see, curiosity is a state of being fully present, of sensing our connection with the infinite possibilities and the natural state of joy. That is our natural state. Amazing. Right? We are transformed by coming into alignment with life, with spirit. It's like you go out and look at a landscape, and Michael's been showing us some wonderful sunrises and this morning, and views from the mountaintops. But it's when we go out on that landscape, maybe one that we've seen thousands of times before, and we're seeing it with brand new eyes. Right? There's previously unseen gifts and possibilities that just delight our newfound awareness. Right? When it's like when we're meditating. Just look in front of you, and whether it's you're looking in your room or you're looking out the window, and just look at the landscape as if you've never seen it before. And I'm sure you'll notice something that's new, maybe just for today, or the color's a little different, the light's a little different, or maybe there's some real important detail you've missed or shown up. By embracing the now with curiosity, we learn to see the world anew. Another thing about this curiosity, then, it creates spaciousness, right? And it opens us to greater possibilities. As Ernest Holmes said, the universe is always conspiring for our good. Now, curiosity allows us to see and experience that good. Right? And so with curiosity, you can look at those scary emotions and separate your feelings that are tied to what happened in the past and who you were then, and then perhaps as a young child, and then who you are now, and other different responses. Rather, there's the response that you had, but there's a whole myriad of other responses that you could have had. Maybe there's new information that you didn't know. Maybe there's something about what was going on in the other person's life that you didn't know. Maybe there's something about your own self that you didn't know. My first husband had a brain tumor for 5 years before we knew it, and some of his strange behavior turned out to be a brain tumor. And so there's forgiveness that comes in, and forgiveness of ourselves for being human. Right? Now, sometimes it's just a little shift that's powerful, that creates a crack for transformation. Now, Mary O'Malley, in her book, she shares a story about a woman that was in one of her seminars, and it illustrates how being present to what we're experiencing without trying to change it creates a spaciousness for us to be curious, and what she calls notice, Knowtice. It's a mixture of know and notice. Right? It's like that intuitive way of knowing. So it's a woman she calls Clara. She shared her insights. So Clara was cooking dinner, and she was looking around her messy house, and the thought came to her mind, I am tired and overwhelmed. And so once she brought that into the story, she noticed her energy sink. Okay, so she's paying attention. And then her perception shifted when she was noticing what was happening. And she realized that those tired and overwhelmed parts of her, yes, they were there, but those parts were not all of her. There was a whole lot more of her rather than just the tired and overwhelmed parts. And so this is a little shift. And when she made that little shift, the same energy sink didn't happen. She was able to maintain a much higher level of presence of energy. And so then she said, the tired and overwhelmed parts of me are visiting, but they don't have all of me. Right? And so what a shift it made. It acknowledged that it's all, yes, it was there, but it was temporary. This too shall pass, and it opened to her to even more spaciousness. And so she had some other insights. The stories in our minds are just like the weather. It comes and it goes. Some days it's sunny, some days it's rainy, some days it's snowy. I can't control the weather, and it's not permanent, but it's always shifting, and it's impossible to control. The only choice is to experience it as it is, and to see it, and respond. So this shift to curiosity, rather than just hunkering down and dealing with it, it brings us into that present moment, and to see these new possibilities that are opening up for us. It creates spaciousness and connection, room for new solutions. It also causes us to shift from our storyteller to what many faiths, Hindu and Buddhism in particular, call our observer, our witness. Right? We do this by shifting from judgment on the past or the future with that storyteller to the present. And we shift into a state of wonder. We are observing what is happening as opposed to being part of it. And that observer can be curious about the present because it's detached. Rather than thinking about it or trying to change things and being stuck on the way things have always been, it's open to new possibilities, to that divine input, right? Rather than assuming that the past patterns will unfold again and again. So I'd like to try a little experiment with you. And so you can see what this is. So first I'd like you to close your eyes and silently say to yourself the word peace several times. And watch carefully. Observe that there is a part of you saying the word peace, and there is a part of you that is aware of what is being said. That awareness is who you really are. This is your observer, your witness. You are not the person saying the word. You are the observer, observing that person, observing this situation, observing what's going on. Your observer sees what's happening at any given moment, but is detached from your thoughts and your feelings. You can come back to the room now. And your sensation and experiences, it just observes without judgment. Your observer is not resisting or trying to change what happened. It is just observing. And as an observer, you are detached from the answers, just observing with curiosity, able to see without judgment and open to more possibilities. Right? And this is what we do when we embrace the now. We change our perception to curiosity and being fully present in the now. It creates space for transformation. Ernest Holmes has a great chapter towards the back of the Science of Mind textbook. It's called The Great Awakening. And he starts with a quote from Romans 13:11. Now is the time to awake out of sleep. And Holmes interprets it, the belief in a life apart from good is a dream from which we must awake, if we are to taste the waters of reality, which flow from the source of life. This awakening is a process of evolution, a little here and a little there, until the whole eye is opened, and we see that life is neither separate from God nor different from good. Life is God, and good is the only power there is or can be. To awaken oneself is to be healed, made prosperous, happy, and satisfied. To be made every whit whole, to be complete as we were intended to be. God is a God of the living and not the dead. This is awakening, as Ernest Holmes put it. Now, there's a word called alchemy, and traditionally it's been about transforming lead into gold, and everybody thought this is kind of crazy people were doing that. But spiritually, it has a whole different meaning. Spiritual alchemy is about transforming unconsciousness into consciousness. It's about transforming that limited awareness into that greater awareness of the infinite. When we awaken, when we open our conscious awareness to the present, remove the blinders that our storyteller has, and we let go of the illusions of holding on to the past or waiting for the future. We live in the present. It gives us courage to look at ourselves, at what really is. We have been conditioned to believe that if we don't look at ourselves and the unacceptable and uncomfortable parts of ourselves in particular, they will go away. But they don't. We have to look at them and transform them. There's a great movie that Michael and I watched this week called Don't Look Up. And it's a very funny parody about life. And there's this giant comet going to impact Earth, and the president is telling everyone, don't look up, don't look up. And then someone at his rally looks up and goes, what? Because they just looked up. So it's amazing what you see when you become focused on what really is. And so by shifting our perspective from that storyteller to the observer, life really is transformed. Eckhart Tolle, in his book, he says, if you get the inside right, the outside will fall into place. Primary reality is within, secondary reality is without. So, in Science of Mind, we put this as, it is done unto you as you believe. That was from the Bible, actually. As we believe, what is manifested in our life. And so if we expect our life to continue to be constrained and difficult, it will be. If we expect our life to open up into this greatness that's yet to be, that is what we will experience right now in the moment. The universe is conspiring for our good, and life happens for us. Life is not a series of random events. It is a highly intelligent unfolding, giving us whatever is most supportive of the evolution of our consciousness, because life is coming from spirit. We are an expression of the one, each one of us. And we all interact as parts of that one. One thing with my hand, I have, in my surgery, I've really learned about how much your left hand and your right hand need each other to do anything like tie a shoe or open a bottle or so many important things that I wasn't able to do for a week or so. Still, some things I can't. But also, there is, when we think about this greater good that is yet to be, Ernest Holmes says, here and now, we are surrounded by and immersed in an infinite good. How much of this infinite good is ours? All of it. And how much of it may we have to use? As much of it as we can embody. So if we can't see it and believe it, we can't have it. It's like having a big bowl of cherries or M&Ms, and you only can see one, and you take that one out, and the rest are all there waiting for us, but we only see the one that we have in our hand. Eckhart Tolle says it in his book. He says the same thing in another way. To be free of time is to be free of the psychological need of time for your identity and future for your fulfillment. It represents the most profound transformation of consciousness that you can imagine, right? So when we stop living in the past or the future and live in the now, it opens us up to this good and allows that transformation to occur in our lives. Living in the present, doesn't simply mean looking for what makes us happy and ignoring the rest, right? It's, that's that kind of idyllic idea to it. Sounds like a childlike trust, but it's not. This is reality. Because what it means is it's not narcissistic, because it's not searching for pleasure and thrills without regards for the consequences or impacts on others. We're just not living for the moment and for the short term. It's because we are fully grounded in the present and what is. We are also fully grounded in spirit and the allness, the oneness of what is. Right? So when you're fully present, you are connected with spirit. So your awareness is not just your mind. Your awareness is linked into that supercomputer of spirit. You're aware of so much more, right? And it's not about just us. It is about the highest and best for all of the one, for all of God, for all of spirit. And when we come from that consciousness, it's not just acting out of anger about what happened in the past or our fear of what's going to happen in the future. It's not making choices because someone will or will not like us, because they're a part of us, right? The highest and best for us is the highest and best for them, and vice versa. Or if we're a politician, we're not worried about getting a certain person's endorsement. We're not, right? It's not a Machiavellian choice where the future and where ends justify the means. It's all about in the present and all the ripples that are in the present. I mean, we have to come back from that humankind being so self-centered and not aware of this wholeness that we've continued to create suffering for themselves and each other by killing hundreds of thousands of people and animals every year. I mean, how can humankind do that to itself, right? Instead, it is about being fully present to what is and to the highest and best for life as a whole in the moment. It's about being awake to our divine intuition, to divine love, and the highest possibilities. When we're in this mindset, when we're dealing with climate change, we become curious about the possibilities and the relationships between our actions and the divine guidance. It's not about short-term expedience or neediness, but about embracing the now, expressing wholeness and love for all of life. It's not just getting that perfect solution, but it's about being in the moment and listening in the moment and being willing to be part of what is unfolding with our hearts wide open. Now, to sum all of this up, Mary O'Malley has a great quote about her approach to life and curiosity. She said, when you're willing to let go of life trying to be a particular way, and instead open to what life is giving you without getting lost in stories, you begin to know joy. You may experience happiness for a while by getting what you want, but joy is the ability to be with whatever is happening. So this week I invite you to stop and honor the present moment several times a day. Practice being curious and living everyday wonder. You may very well experience the joy of being alive. Now next week we're going to go into more detail about how you can transform your life and how you can embrace the now and wonder. We'll learn about how our body can be a source of wisdom, and there's an opportunity to support spiritual enlightenment, transform your relationships, and move towards happiness and inner peace that lasts. It's not just ephemeral, right? Now, this is the beginning of our journey for the whole year. And the print on this slide is a little small, but what I want you to see is that each month we're going to be taking a different topic and applying this whole idea of living everyday wonder to different areas of our life. So next month, we're going to be looking at your inner life. We'll be looking at creativity, emotions, nature, relationships, finances, home, community, all of these different areas of our life. And it's amazing how transformational living in the present is. So I hope you continue with us on this journey. But right now, let's take this to prayer. So in this moment, I know that there is one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. And that life is my life and the life of each person here listening to my voice. We are part of the one. And as we let go of the past, let go of the future, we find ourselves right here in the middle of the now. And we open our arms and hearts wide to embrace it. And as we do, it is as if we have been looking everywhere for an answer. Everywhere, high and low. And we're in a room of 1,000 doors. And we try each one of those doors, looking to see which one is the way out of this room, of this place where we've been stuck. And every time we go through a door, sometimes they're locked. Sometimes we go through to the other side and it's just a dead end, maybe a brick wall. But finally, we've tried all of them. There's one of them, a little tiny one that has the letters HE on it. It's kind of hard to get to, and HE, well, that must be hell. We'll skip that one. But finally, that's the only one that's left. And so as we come closer to it, we see that what's written on it is HERE, here. Here is the answer, here in the now. And as we get closer, it gets bigger and bigger, that door. And finally, when we get right up to it, all of the walls in the room have dissolved. And we are no longer stuck in that room. We are free to be a part of the wholeness of life. And we feel that connection. We look at a beautiful tree that's in front of us and we feel a connection with the vibrancy of life that is within it and within us. Somebody's standing near us, and there is this sense of connection, of the magnificence of who they are, which has never been so more clear and vibrant. And as we notice the vibrancy of that wonderful person in front of us, there is that within us that is awakened. And it is because we are opening up that channel of spirit to express itself through us and in our lives. And it is clearing out all of that stuff and all of the past stuff that keeps us stuck. And we are free to be alive in this oneness. There is great space and joy. Life is full of goodness, and we share it everywhere. These blessings that are filling our life, we share it with all of life, and it is good. We share it with our friends here at the Center for Spiritual Living, Tahoe-Truckee, and our center is transformed. It is a place where people find wholeness and experience it. They experience love and they share it, that awareness. Their lives are transformed and it ripples out into the world, finding other centers of spirit, of joy, of life, of goodness. And all of life seems that much more beautiful and wonderful and precious. I'm so grateful to be here today, to be a part of this experience, to be a part of this center, to be a part of life itself. Thank you. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. Thank you for this experience in my life and everyone here. And as I release these words, knowing that it is already done, I have already grown and it continues to evolve into something even more wonderful towards expressing the infinite. And it is good. And so it is. And so I let it be.